welcome to Nature Notes. I'm Sammy, and today I'll be talking about an animal that looks a little like a lizard, but it's a little bit slippery than that, and that will be salamanders. Now, here in Wisconsin, we have a few different species of salamanders, but today I'll be talking about the mole salamanders, which means that, unlike most salamanders, they like to live underground or in leaf litter. And the first salamander I'll talk about are the blue-spotted salamanders. Now, all salamanders start off as eggs. Now, the blue-spotted salamander lays up to 500 eggs per female in the springtime. And all salamanders like to lay their eggs closer to the bottom of a pond, and preferably a pond without fish, because fish are a major predator of salamander eggs. And they will attach the eggs to sticks or debris down at the bottom of the lake or pond. Now, after a while, our salamanders hatch, and it takes about, depending on each species, it takes a few days to a few weeks. And most spotted salamanders have a mottled black look to them, and they take almost from spring all the way to late summer until they metamorphosize into the adults. The adult blue-spotted salamander is very distinct in its look because it is black with usually blue to white spots along its body. They are one of these smaller salamander species that are mole salamanders. They get only to 4 to 5 or 6 inches long, and they take about 2 years to reproduce in the wild. Now, the actual lifespan of them in the wild is currently unknown. More research needs to be done on them. And their body is about 40% tail, so they have quite a bit of tail compared to their small little bodies. Also, with our mole salamanders, all of them have glands at the base of their tail that secrete a milky substance that is sometimes toxic or just bad tasting. That way, when a predator tries to eat them, they will secrete this and the predator will hopefully drop them. There are many predators of adult salamanders, raccoons, skunks. They all will eat salamanders. Our next salamander is the largest salamander in North America, and it also starts off as eggs. And as you can see, all eggs look very similar to each other. This is the tiger salamander. They lay between 100 to 1,000 eggs per female per season. It really depends on the size of the female and how healthy she was when she decided to lay eggs. Now, the tiger salamander larvae look a little different from the blue-spotted and the normal spotted, the yellow-spotted salamanders. They are yellow with mottled skin, which is really hard to tell when you look with your naked eye. And all larval salamanders have external gills which allow them to breathe underwater. This is the tiger salamander adult, and as you can see, they kind of do look like tigers. Now, they may not always have these stripes. Some of them look a little bit more spotted, some of them are even more stripy. They live up to 10 years in the wild or 20 years in captivity. They literally eat everything. They're like the bullfrogs of the salamanders. Anything that they can catch and put into their mouth, they usually will eat it. But they do prefer to eat things like snails, slugs, other insects. But they have been known to eat pinky mice if they stumble across a mouse nest. They take about 4 years to reach sexual maturity compared to our blue-spotted, who only take 2 years. And since they are the largest land-dwelling salamander, they are 7 to 11 inches long, which makes them very big and able to eat all those things that they like to eat. Now, our last but not least salamander are the spotted salamanders. Now, as you can see, their eggs are a little bit different looking. This is unique to them as they actually have algae that lives in their eggs, and they are the only salamanders that we know of, actually almost any animal that we know of, that actually has a symbiotic relationship with algae. They actually believe that the algae, much like as people with their mitochondrial DNA, where they have it from like different viruses and stuff. It's not actually part of us. We have different DNA in our mitochondria. The algae actually live with the salamanders their entire life, and they get passed on from the mother to the offspring. And this relationship means that the algae will use the waste products from the salamander to feed itself while providing oxygen for the salamander eggs. The salamander eggs actually have a higher success rate if they have algae to hatch compared to if they don't. If they don't have the algae for this species, there's only a 30 to 90% success rate, compared to if they had algae, it'd be 90 to 100%, which is a huge difference in the survival of this species. The females will lay up to 100 to 370 eggs per season. And they carry that green hue from the algae onto their larval stage, which is a way you can tell the difference. It takes about 2 to 4 months for them to metamorphosize, from kind of like frogs, where they go from tadpoles to adults. Salamanders also go from the larva to the adults. And they will go to reproduce after the first rain, the first rain after the first snowfall of the year. So they'll wait for, snow melt. So they wait for the snow to melt and then the next rain in order to go to the ponds that they were children in to lay their eggs for the next generation. After they metamorphosize, they look a little like this, which some people will get these guys confused with tiger salamanders. But these are only 4 to 7 inches long, and they are exclusively spotted, and they also have this weird tannish, grayish color on their bellies, compared to the tigers, who are a more uniform black and white, black and yellow, mostly yellow. And they still contain the algae inside their system, and they live about 2 to 7, they take about 2 to 7 years to reach sexual maturity. And this all depends, I know it's such a wide range, but it really depends on where you find them. The northern species tend to mature way later than the southern species. They take about 2 to 3 years in the south, where the warmer temperatures are, and 5 to 7 in the northern areas. Females will take longer than males in general, usually about a year longer than males. And they live 20 years in the wild, which is a very amazing feat for these guys. But unfortunately for them, they are eaten a lot, their eggs and their larvae. And over 90 to 70% of all young salamanders are eaten before they reach maturity. But once they reach maturity, they usually are pretty much home free after that point. They don't like to get eaten as much because of those poisonous or bad tasting glands that they release from their tails. In captivity, these guys will live up to 30 years in captivity. And unlike our tiger salamanders, they are not as ferocious in their eating. They are bigger, so they do eat bigger animals. They will eat small newts or other salamanders, and other snails, slugs, and invertebrates or bugs. They won't really eat the mice like the tigers do. And if you are able to distinguish the difference between all the larvae and all the eggs on your first try, then you are pretty much a salamander expert, because it takes years and years of studying salamanders in order to really be able to tell the difference until they are adults. Well, that's all I have today for you all. Thank you very much for joining me today on Nature Notes, and have a wonderful rest of your day.